Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to be talking about my personal favorite topic to talk about here on my channel, which is drugstore makeup, specifically new releases that have just come out. I have some new things from e.l.f. and also from Revlon. We're going to be trying everything on today and also just comparing them to other products in my collection. I really like to do that just to give you the full picture so you can see whether it's worth actually spending your money on these or if you can go ahead and skip them. So if that sounds good, keep watching. If you haven't subscribed to my channel and you like honest makeup reviews, be sure to hit the subscribe button and let's go ahead and jump right in and get started. Okay, so I want to start off with eyeshadow, and I have these new Finest Fleck single eyeshadows from e.l.f. So I've seen a lot about these on social media. I've seen some people saying they're absolute trash, other people saying they're fantastic, and comparing them to things like the Patrick Ta eyeshadow duos that just came out. Personally, I don't really see the comparison there. I think these are supposed to be closer to something like the Urban Decay Moon Dust shadow. You kind of have like that really sheer, scattered light, kind of very fine glitter type of formula. Something that almost gives you a wet look to your eye, but not a lot of pigment, not a lot of color. So I will be comparing these to the Moon Dust shadows, and I'll also be comparing them to the Moira Chroma Light shadows. I think that's what they're called. Yeah, the Chroma Light. And I also just happened to get one of the Too Faced Disco Crush shadows in PR, so I thought I'd throw that in there too because this is kind of like the same type of formula. But first, let's just look at the e.l.f. shadows themselves. There are 6 shades altogether, but I wasn't able to get the last one. It's the darkest shade. I think it's like a dark brown, but it was sold out on their website. So I did get the other 5 shades. And these come in really pretty, just very wearable colors. Everything's really neutral for the most part. There's nothing that's too bright or bold. And when I swatched these, they swatched about like what I was expecting. They have a little wash of color, not too much, and also those super fine micro glitters in the formula. So right away, they did remind me of something like the Urban Decay Moon Dust shadows. So first, I just want to show you a direct comparison swatched on dry skin, no primer, and we can see what these all look like. So first up, we have the e.l.f. shadow, and this is in the shade Champagne Showers. It's just a really light kind of neutral tan or champagne. And again, you can see it's pretty sheer. You have a lot of glitter in there as well. And then next to that, I'm swatching Space Cowboy from Urban Decay. This is their Moon Dust shadow. And just directly comparing the two, I think the Moon Dust shadow has a lot more pigment behind it. You can see that color a little more. And I also think it's much more glittery. I think it just makes a little bit more of an impact going on. Next up, we have the Moira Chroma Light shadow in the shade Sugar Crush. And this one is the closest that I can find to Urban Decay's Space Cowboy. I think it's a pretty close dupe. And this one too is way more pigment heavy than the e.l.f. version. So I would say this is pretty comparable to the Moon Dust shadow from Urban Decay, both in terms of the finish, the level of glitter, and the pigmentation. Then last but not least, we have the Disco Crush shadow from Too Faced. And this is in the shade Show Off, which is a pink shade. It doesn't go with these others at all. So I'm not comparing in terms of the color, but just in terms of the formula, I wanted to show you what this actually looks like. And to me, this one looks a little bit more like the e.l.f. formula. It doesn't have quite as much color behind it as the Urban Decay or the Moira, and it does have that micro fine glitter in there as well. So here's a look at all 4 of them just side by side, and that way you can really see a direct comparison. Now again, those swatches were on just dry skin, but I wanted to swatch them again on top of my NYX glitter primer because that's something that I think I would always wear under a shadow like this, because just from my experience of wearing the Moon Dust shadows from Urban Decay all the time for years now, I know that the glitters can tend to fall on your face as you're wearing them. And if you don't want those little sparkles on your cheeks throughout the day, it makes sense to just wear a glitter primer. That way you don't have quite as much fallout from these. So I wanted to swatch them again on top of glitter primer because I know that can really make a big difference when it comes to the pigmentation of the shadow, and just sometimes it can boost the performance a little bit. So let's swatch those same shades again, this time over the NYX glitter primers. So I just put a little bit on my arm and blended that in. I let it set for a couple seconds, and then I went back with that e.l.f. shadow again, and you can see it actually looks a lot better. It has that nice wet look to it. The pigmentation shows up a little bit more. I think that the glitter primer just really helped that e.l.f. shadow to come alive. Next, we have Urban Decay's Moon Dust shadow in Space Cowboy. And it does still look a little bit brighter than the e.l.f. in terms of the glitter, and it does have more pigmentation again. But I do think there's not quite as big of a difference between the two as there was when I swatched them on dry skin. Next, we have the Moira Chroma Light Shadow in Sugar Crush. And this one too, it really pops even more over the glitter primer. I think it just helps that color to develop a little bit more. It's really beautiful. And then last but not least, we have the Too Faced Shadow. Again, it's totally not the same color, so just keep that in mind. But the glitter primer helped this one to really stand out as well. So overall, I would say definitely grab a glitter primer. The NYX one is available on Amazon. It's really cheap. You can also get it on the NYX website, on the Ulta website. So it's something that I really rely on just for keeping my shadows in place throughout the day. And then just for the heck of it, let's swatch one more of the e.l.f. shades just to make sure the first one wasn't a fluke. Sometimes different colors can swatch differently. So this time I'm taking the shade Straight Fire, which is kind of like a pink that shifts to purple, and it has a little bit of brown behind it. This shade reminds me so much of Solstice from Urban Decay and also Summer Dream from Moira. So unfortunately, I don't know where I put my Solstice shadow from Urban Decay, but I did recently post a short, which I'm just gonna put right here on the screen. And this is comparing Moira's Summer Dream with Urban Decay Solstice, just so you can see these two colors are almost identical, both in terms of like the finish, the pigmentation. I think they're really almost the same. So you can get a good idea of what Urban Decay's Solstice looks like just comparing it to the Moira one. So I decided to put these two side by side, the e.l.f. and the Moira, so we could see what they look like. And this is not over any kind of glitter primer. So we have the Moira on the left, the e.l.f. on the right, and you can see again, just like with the last one, I think the color is similar, but the e.l.f. is just way more sheer and it's not quite as glittery or impactful as the Moira shadow, which has a bit more of that pigment behind it. So anyway, I just quickly wanted to show you those comparisons before I try the shadows on. But now I'm gonna go ahead, I have my glitter primer here. I'm just gonna put this down first. And because I have some cool tone blush and lip products that I wanna try, I think I want to wear the pink shade from e.l.f. It's called Pop of Pink and it looks absolutely beautiful. And I'm actually wondering if I should compare it to the Too Faced one. What do you think? Maybe I'll do like one on one eye and one on the other, because the Too Faced is like a $30 shadow, which is insane. I'm really curious to see how the e.l.f. ones apply to the eye compared to something that's that expensive. So again, this is Pop of Pink. I'm just going to pick this up with my finger. I think it's the easiest way to do it. I'm just going to start packing this on my eye. The glitter primer is really helping it to stick, so it's not gonna fall all over my face. And it is a little bit on the sheer side. I feel like I have to build it up a little, but at the same time, I feel like it is giving that pretty wet look and definitely catching the light. So I do think this is a beautiful shadow. Whether or not you can compare it to a high-end shadow, just on its own merit, I do think it is really beautiful and it's super affordable as well. So I just put on like 3 coats of this and I think that helped it to show up really nicely. I think the glitter primer helped as well. So now I'm just gonna put the glitter primer on my other eye and prep that for the Too Faced shadow. One thing to note about shadows like this as well is that they do feel kind of scratchy when you pick them up. They don't have that creamy, buttery feel like other traditional metallic eyeshadows have. I think because of the little glitter particles, they don't feel super soft, but they're not really supposed to. So here's what the Too Faced one looks like, just 1 coat. I think just the 1 coat alone gave it enough oomph that it's pretty close to the e.l.f. one, just like this. But if I wanted to build it up a little bit, I think we can definitely get even more of an impact out of it. Again, it's not giving too much color, but it's just making your eyes have that sort of glassy, wet look going on. So I know these aren't the exact same color, but I think the effect is similar. And I noticed with the swatches that I think the e.l.f. is the closest thing to the Too Faced shadows, not really the Urban Decay Moon Dust. I think those are closer to the Moira version. They just have a little bit more pigmentation, while the Too Faced and the e.l.f. are a little more sheer. It's really just like a wash of glitter. So I'd really love to hear your opinion on this. Do you like shadows like this that give this wet look and not much color? Or are you like a full pigment, full color person? Let us know down in the comments. All right, next for mascara, I'm just gonna quickly pop on the lash extender from e.l.f. This is truly one of my favorite drugstore mascaras of the moment, and I think it gets better and better as you use it. As the formula dries out a little bit, it gives me even more length and volume than it did when I first got the brand new tube. And because it's a tubing formula, it doesn't give me raccoon eyes. It's super easy to remove with just warm water, so I love it. Next up, I just quickly wanted to share this new shade of the e.l.f. Liquid Duochrome Eyeshadow. This is in the shade Extra-Terrestrial, which is brand new. They just launched it, and it shifts from metallic pink to yellow to green. So it has this gorgeous shift, and I really love this formula. I think it is super smooth. It's easy to apply to your eyes. I just apply it right with the sponge tip applicator, and then you have a little while to play with it. You can either blend it with your finger or use a brush to apply it, whatever you prefer. And once these set down, they don't budge, so they're just a really great formula overall. So they have the duochrome ones, they have glitter versions, they have a metallic version, so there's a lot of different options depending on the finish that you like, but I just couldn't resist this one when I saw it pop up on the website. I just thought it looked so beautiful, so I just wanted to show you that really quick. Next, let's move on to complexion. So I'm already wearing foundation today. I have the e.l.f. Soft Glam foundation on, but I wanted to try their new bronzer and contour. These are liquid formulas. These come in 10 shades with cool, neutral, and warm undertones available. I ended up getting the two lightest shades, which are number 1 fair and number 2 fair light. So the fair shade is very cool toned. This one I would use more as a contour. It has that little bit of a gray undertone to it. And then fair light is a little bit warmer, so this is the one I would probably use just as a bronzer overall. And what I really loved about this color is it almost seems like it has a little bit of a rosy undertone, which is totally perfect for my complexion because my skin normally turns rosy when I tan. So I was really excited to see these two colors. I think they both look beautiful for my skin tone, and I really think they did a great job. So before I try it on, let's take a look at these next to some other liquid bronzers that I already have in my collection. That way you can get a good idea of what these shades look like compared to some other ones. So the first comparison I want to make is with the Glossier Cloud Paint Bronzer in the shade Sail. This one is one of my favorite bronzers when it comes to liquid formulas. It's so blendable, it's so easy to apply. I definitely think it's a little bit more sheer than the e.l.f. ones. But overall, I think the shade Sail is a little bit lighter and also looks a little bit more yellow compared to the other two, which is weird because normally I always think of the shade Sail as being a little bit more cool toned. Next up is the Moira Liquid Contour and Bronzer, and this is in the shade Fair Light. And this one, formula-wise, I think is really similar to the e.l.f. It has a lot of pigmentation behind it. A little bit goes a very long way, and I think this one is more in line with the fair shade from e.l.f., except it's maybe a little bit darker, but it definitely has that grayish undertone. Next up, we have the Say Liquid Bronzer. This one is in the shade Salt, and this formula isn't sheer, but I don't think it's as full coverage as the e.l.f. or the Moira one either. I wasn't a huge fan of this formula. I felt like it went on really patchy, but to me, I think this shade looks almost identical to the fair shade from e.l.f. It definitely has that grayish undertone to it. Next, we have the Makeup by Mario Liquid Bronzer, and this one's in the shade Fair. And out of all the formulas, this one is definitely the most sheer. I think it's even more sheer than the Glossier version. I remember when this first came out, people were saying it really didn't show up on them. It's honestly not my favorite. I do like the color, but it just sort of disappears into your skin. Next, we have the Physicians Formula Butter Glow Liquid Bronzer. This one is in the shade Bronze. I think that's the only shade that it comes in. And this one's also a slightly more sheer formula. It's really similar to the Glossier Cloud Paint. I really like this one a lot, and I think it's also pretty close in color to the Cloud Paint in the shade Sail. And then we have the KVD Liquid Bronzer. This is in the shade Light Cool. And color-wise, I think this is actually pretty close to the Fair Light shade from e.l.f. It's a little bit more bronzy, but it still has that cooler undertone. It's just a bit more of a sheer formula than the e.l.f. Camo. So here's just a look at all of my liquid bronzers swatched next to each other. Again, we have the two e.l.f. shades Fair and Fair Light all the way to the right-hand side of the screen. And they definitely look more pigmented than some of the other formulas, but I think the colors look really good. So for today's look, I think I'm gonna wear the Fair Light shade and just apply it as a bronzer. I don't really contour all that often, so I usually prefer to just put a bronzer on my cheeks and just warm up my complexion a little bit. So I'm gonna put this on the back of my hand, just knowing how pigmented this formula is. I'm gonna go in really slowly with it. So I'm gonna pick it up on the BK Beauty 107 brush, which is my favorite cheek brush. And by the way, BK Beauty just bumped up my code with them to 30% off. It's normally 10. So if you use code JENPHELPS30, you'll get 30% off at BK Beauty, which is huge. And these are like some of my favorite brushes. So anyway, I'm just gonna go ahead and start stamping this right on my cheek. Yeah, this is so pigmented. I feel like it's gonna be a little bit tricky to use. I'm just gonna put some over here as well, and then go back and blend this one. I do really love this color though. Just be very, very careful with this because I hardly picked up any, and I was able to kind of do both cheeks with that one little bit. And if you missed my video that I did a couple months ago when I talked about RMS Beauty, I learned this bronzer trick from the owner of RMS, and she said to put bronzer across your face this way, because if you think about it, when you get a real tan and you go out in the sun tends to hit you right here where you would get freckles. It doesn't go this way. I know a lot of people, I always see them applying bronzer like a contour, but ever since I learned this trick, it has just been a game changer for me. I love this bronzer placement so much. So I usually do it there, and then I also just run a little bit across the top of my forehead, not too much. But again, that's another place that you normally get hit by the sun. And then usually whatever's left on my brush, I don't really pick up any more, but I'll just kind of work that under my chin and along my jawline. And the reason that I don't put too much here is because the sun doesn't really hit you here, but I just want to try to make everything look really even and not look like I just have bronzer on the top half of my face. So it just kind of blends everything together a little bit more. And I'll just kind of drag that down my neck. And I have to say, I am loving this color. It's the perfect rosy bronze. I don't think it's too warm. It's not orangey. It really complements my skin beautifully, and it gives that little bit of like a hint of rosiness that I would get with a natural tan. I just love it. I think this is so natural looking. So let's move on to the new Camo blush shades. They just came out with 3 additional colors for their liquid camo blush range. And I ended up getting so many DMs from you guys about the lavender shade that they came out with. And once I saw this, I knew I had to get it, but I did pick up all 3 shades. So let me just show you what those look like really quick. So we have Bold Faced Lilac. It's actually lilac, not lavender. Cherry Lychee, and Copper Etiquette. So I love all 3 of these colors. I think they're all gonna be gorgeous. Personally, I can't wait to try the purple one, so I think that's what we're gonna do today. And if you haven't tried the camo formula from e.l.f., I think these are pretty comparable to something like the Rare Beauty blushes, which are super pigmented. These are the type that you only need a tiny little bit. I highly recommend putting it on the back of your hand first instead of dotting it on your cheeks, because you're gonna go way overboard if you do that. Another blush formula it kind of reminds me of is the Juvia's Place blushes. And I felt like these 3 new colors were very in line with what Juvia's Place has. So I just wanted to show you a quick comparison. I don't really have any Rare Beauty blushes at the moment. The ones that I did have, I decluttered because they were very old. So I just want to quickly show you the lilac shade next to a purple one that I have from Juvia's Place, which is Blush Lily. And these are actually very different. Even though the Juvia's Place one has that purpley undertone, it's a lot more pink. And I think the e.l.f. one is just more of that dusty lilac. So these 2 aren't really that similar color-wise. Another comparison I wanted to make is Cheeky Lychee from e.l.f. and Rosy Posy from Juvia's Place. So when I look at these side by side, I think Rosy Posy from Juvia's Place is definitely more pink, where the e.l.f. Cheeky Lychee is a little bit more peachy. And then the third comparison I have is e.l.f.'s Copper Etiquette next to Juvia's Place Soft Tulip. And while these both have that really warm undertone, the Juvia's Place Soft Tulip is just a lighter, paler peach, and Copper Etiquette from e.l.f. is much deeper. So it's not to say that there aren't other Juvia's Place colors out there that might pair better with these. I just wanted to show you the colors that I personally have. I only have these 3, but I just wanted to do that comparison quickly in case you have any of these colors from Juvia's Place. I don't think you're gonna dupe them with the e.l.f. So for my cheeks today, I'm definitely trying the lilac shade. It is so gorgeous, and you all know how much I love a purple blush these days. So again, putting some on the back of my hand, I'm just gonna pick it up again with the BK Beauty 107 A7 brush, and I'm just gonna start stamping this on really lightly. I can always add more color if I need to. And when I wear bronzer, I always get asked, where do you put the blush in comparison to bronzer? Personally, I just put the blush right on top. I think when the blush kind of mixes with the bronzer, it adds to that little bit of a sunburn look or the sun-kissed look. So I happen to love that look, but on days when I just want the blush to stand on its own, then I just skip the bronzer altogether. So this color is amazing. It really doesn't look lilac on me. It shows up as a beautiful cool tone pink. If you're someone who struggles with pink blushes looking peachy on you, definitely try a purple. It's honestly a game changer. Okay, moving on to lips. This is probably the most exciting product of the video for me, and it's the Revlon Glass Shine Lipsticks. They are back from the dead. I am so excited. I know I posted about this on my community tab. I linked to Amazon where they are selling these now. But this morning, I was just in CVS and I saw the display of them. So even though I had already ordered a couple of colors from Amazon, I ended up grabbing some from CVS because I wanted to include them in this video today. So Revlon has made a couple of changes, thankfully not to the formula. The formula and the smell of these is exactly the same. They still have that kind of like toasted vanilla scent. It's so good. And the packaging is actually identical as far as the component. It's just white instead of black. So I have one of my old ones here. And one thing that you guys will hopefully be happy about too is the black tubes always got the residue from the sticker all over it. And I know some of you guys complained about that. You can take it off with a little rubbing alcohol, but it was always a pain in the neck. Now, the white tubes, they did have the same sticker, but I just felt like it came off more easily. And also you just can't see the residue. If there is a little bit on here, it's not as noticeable on the white packaging. And I also think because I tend to carry these around in my purse, the white is just easier to spot. So I personally like the white tube. I know some people feel like the black is classic for Revlon, but I think these do look really pretty and really chic. Another change that they made is that the color range has drastically shrunk down. So when I looked back at the old formula, it looked like they had about 24 colors. Now they're down to 10 shades. But out of the old shades, they only kept 4 of them, and then 6 are brand new. So the shades that they kept were Rum Raisin, which arguably was the most popular shade. When these went viral on TikTok, that was the shade that I wanted to get, and I couldn't get that color anywhere. They also kept Nude Illuminator, Glossed Up Rose, and Glazed Mauve. So personally, I'm happy about that. Glazed Mauve was one of my favorite shades. Nude Illuminator was one of my favorite, but the other 6 shades are actually brand new. Unfortunately, my CVS only carried 6 out of the 10 shades, but there are 10 shades over on Amazon, and I have Nude Illuminator from before, so I'll be able to show you this shade too, because this is part of the new collection. So let me just quickly show you swatches of the 7 shades that I have. And if you haven't tried this formula before, these are basically like tinted lip balms, but they're very rich and thick, and they have a cushiony texture that just feels amazing on your lips. They're super hydrating. If you're familiar with K-Beauty, they're really similar to the Romande Glasting Balms. They're also kind of sort of along the same line as the Tarte Maracuja Juicy Lips, but I find that these aren't quite as melty and glossy. They have a little bit more firmness to them, and they feel more balmy than glossy on your lips. So I figured I would just try on all the shades for you guys really quick, and we can see what they look like on my lips. So the first shade is Pink Flip, and this actually goes on pretty much clear. So I don't think you're really even gonna see any color with this, but I just wanna show it to you. It basically just gives a little hint of glossiness, but that's about it. Next we have Nude Illuminator. Again, this is my old packaging, but they kept the colors exactly the same. So that's what this one looks like. This next one's a new shade called Honey Shine, and it's kind of like a peachy coral. This one is Glossed Up Rose, and this is one of the original shades that they brought back. This is one of the new colors. This is called Girly Swirly, and it's kind of like a pinky coral. Next is Glazed Mauve, and this is another of the original shades that they brought back. And last but not least, we have Rum Raisin. This is the one that went completely viral on TikTok last year, and I'm so happy that I finally have it. It is so pretty. Also at CVS, I came across these new Colorstay Multi-Liners from Revlon, and the concept of these reminds me a bit of the artist pencils from Makeup Forever. So these are a pencil that you could use on your eyes, your cheeks, your lips, and I love that concept. I use the Makeup Forever ones all the time. I sometimes use them as blushes. You can just draw them on your cheek and blend because they're kind of creamy, or I'll use them as lipsticks. I'll just completely fill in my lips and then put a balm on top. So I really love an all-in-one pencil, and I'm so happy to have one at the drugstore. Another cool thing about the Revlon ones is that they have a little brush on the end. So that reminds me a lot of the Makeup by Mario lip liners. I use those all the time because when you line your lips, you can just take the brush and kind of feather it out so it doesn't look super harsh. Or if you want to fill in your lips, you can use the brush to kind of just paint it on. So I absolutely love the packaging. I love what they did with this. And they had a bunch of different colors. They had some darker shades that I think would probably work better for eyes than lips or cheeks. And I didn't end up buying those. I mainly got the colors that I thought would work for lips and cheeks. And when I swatched these before, I felt like they were really nice and creamy and very easy to draw on. So I wanted to quickly try one today. I think I'm going to use the shade Dallying because I just want to see how these apply. And I thought maybe I would apply it as a lipstick. So I'm just gonna go ahead and quickly fill this in. These are so creamy. Actually, I feel like they're even creamier than the Makeup Forever ones. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing because sometimes a creamy formula isn't gonna stay as long. But yeah, you could easily apply this just as a lipstick all over your lips. It's really, really effortless. If you need to take the brush and kind of just like blend a little bit and soften the edge, you can do that as well. And then you can just take something like I have this Neutrogena lip oil and you can just pop that on top just to add a little bit more hydration and you're good to go. And I find that liners as lipsticks last so much longer than just a lipstick itself. So just quickly, I wanted to compare two of the shades that I have to the two Makeup Forever artist pencils that I use the most often, which are Anywhere Caffeine and Wherever Walnut. So from left to right, I have Anywhere Caffeine from Makeup Forever. Then next to that, I have Off-Roading from Revlon, which I do think is a little bit deeper of a shade, even though it does have that kind of nude, warm undertone. And then the third one from the left is Dynamic Doer from Revlon. And then the one all the way on the right is Wherever Walnut from Makeup Forever. And I actually think those two shades are a little bit closer to each other, but they're still not quite exact. I think Wherever Walnut from Makeup Forever is just a little bit pinker. So while I don't think the Revlon ones are color dupes by any means, I think just the overall idea of them and just how you can use them is a really similar concept. And I love that we have something like that at the drugstore that is safe for eyes, lips, and cheeks, and you can use them all over. So I just think that's amazing, and I'm so excited to see it. So I'd love to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on all of the new makeup that we tried today? If you've tried any of these products, definitely let us know down in the comment section. And if you're interested in seeing more drugstore content, I'll just put some right over here that you could check out next. I want to thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video. I truly appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in my next one. Take care, guys. Bye.